The emergency klaxons screamed through the damaged corridors of the Meridian Dawn, their piercing wail mixing with the hiss of escaping atmosphere. Edward pressed his back against the cold titanium wall, his plasma rifle warm in his hands, its charge indicator blinking amber, 30% remaining. 3 days ago, humanity's third expeditionary fleet had encountered the Ashkori Empire for the first time. The diplomatic mission had turned into a massacre within hours. Edward's unit, the 47th Reconnaissance Division, had been tasked with evacuating survivors from the flagship. Now he was the only human left alive on this section of the ship. He moved through the darkened passage, his helmet's heads-up display painting the world in thermal signatures and threat assessments. The Ashkori, what military intelligence had designated as vampiric humanoids, had boarded the ship through breached hull sections. They were faster than humans, stronger, and they fed on blood to sustain their enhanced abilities. The war had started badly. A sound made Edward freeze, not the mechanical groans of the dying ship, but something organic, a gasp. He moved toward it, rifle raised, and found her in a storage bay. She was Ashkori, unmistakably so. Pale skin that seemed to glow faintly in the emergency lighting, dark hair that floated slightly as if underwater, and those eyes, violet and luminous. But she was wounded. A massive piece of shrapnel protruded from her abdomen, and the pool of blood beneath her was vast. Her ornate uniform marked her as high-ranking, perhaps nobility. Jenny, that's what her nameplate read in angular Ashkori script, translated instantly by his helmet's xenolinguistics program, looked up at him. Her lips moved, speaking words his translator rendered as, "Human soldier, kill me quickly." Edward should have. Rules of engagement were clear. The Ashkori had shown no mercy to his comrades. But something in her eyes stopped him, not pleading but resignation. Acceptance. She was dying, and she knew it. "How long do you have?" he asked. Her eyes widened slightly at his question. "Minutes, maybe less. The wound is mortal, and I am far from my people. Without blood, without transfusion, I will expire." Edward's mind raced. Intel had briefed them on Ashkori biology. They required blood, yes, but not exclusively human blood. Any compatible protein matrix would work. They'd evolved on a resource-scarce world where hemophagy had become advantageous. They weren't monsters. They were people with different biology. He made a decision that would alter the trajectory of two civilizations. Edward removed his helmet and knelt beside her. My blood. Would it work? Jenny stared at him as if he'd spoken in an unknown language. You would offer. I am your enemy. You're wounded and dying. That makes you a person who needs help. He was already accessing his suit's medical kit, pulling out the emergency transfusion line. Besides, maybe one act of mercy can stop this war before more die. Human philosophy, she whispered, but there was something like wonder in her voice. You are either very noble or very foolish. Probably both. Edward inserted the needle into his arm, watched his blood flow through the tube. Tell me if this works. When the first drops of human blood touched her lips, Jenny's eyes flared bright violet. Her hands, which had been trembling, steadied. The emergency transfusion was crude, direct, but effective. Edward watched as color returned to her face, as the glow of her skin intensified. The transformation took 15 minutes. 15 minutes during which Edward felt increasingly lightheaded but forced himself to remain conscious. When Jenny finally pulled away, the shrapnel wound was closing, her tissue regenerating at visible speed. Impossible, she breathed. Human blood is potent. I can feel strength I've never known. Your blood carries something ours doesn't, some evolutionary advantage from your homeworld's harsh conditions. Edward swayed. Great. Glad it worked. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to... He collapsed. When Edward woke, he was no longer on the Meridian Dawn. The room around him was elegant, built from materials that seemed to absorb and emit soft light simultaneously. Ashkori architecture. He was on one of their ships. Jenny stood beside his bed, watching him with those luminous eyes. She wore different clothing now, something between a military uniform and ceremonial robes. You are awake. Good. I was concerned the blood loss had damaged you permanently. Where am I? Edward tried to sit up, found he was restrained. Not harshly, but definitely secured. You are aboard the Nightfall Ascending, flagship of the 3rd Imperial Squadron. My flagship. Jenny moved closer. I am Princess Jenny Vi Ashkor, 3rd heir to the Crimson Throne, and you, Edward of Humanity, are now under my personal protection. I'm a prisoner. You are an asset, a curiosity, a problem. She sat on the edge of his bed, her closeness unsettling. Your blood has changed me, human. I can feel it singing through my veins even now. I am faster, stronger, more resilient than any Ashkori in recorded history. The Imperial scientists are fascinated. They wish to study this phenomenon. Edward felt cold dread. You're going to use me, breed super soldiers from my blood. No. Her response was sharp, immediate. I forbid it. You saved my life when you could have let me die, when you should have killed me as your enemy. That creates a debt in Ashkori culture that can never be repaid. You are mine, Edward. Under my protection, bound to my service, but also under my care. None may harm you while I live. So I'm a pet. Jenny's expression shifted to something almost hurt. You are a person who showed me mercy when the galaxy showed only violence. I will not let you go, human, because I cannot. Our biology is now linked. Your blood calls to me like a beacon. But more than that, she paused, seeming to search for words. You changed something in me beyond the physical. You reminded me that enemies can choose differently. Over the following weeks, Edward learned the complexity of his situation. He was confined to Jenny's quarters, given access to information, taught Ashkori language and culture. Jenny visited daily, sometimes hourly. She brought him food prepared to human specifications, entertainment, news from both sides of the war, and slowly, Edward began to understand. The war had started over a misunderstanding, a first contact scenario gone catastrophically wrong. Both sides had dug into positions of hatred, but Jenny, changed by human blood and human mercy, had become something new, a bridge. The Empress agrees to meet, Jenny told him one evening, her excitement barely contained. Human representatives, neutral station. She wants to understand what created this change in me. You're using me as a diplomatic tool, Edward said, but there was no anger in it. I am using what happened between us as proof that our species can coexist, can even enhance each other. Jenny moved closer, her hand touching his arm, a gesture that had become familiar. I will not let you go, Edward, because humanity and the Ashkori Empire need you, need us, need proof that another way is possible. Edward looked at her, really looked. The alien princess who had become something more than captor, more than savior. And what do you need? Jenny smiled, and it transformed her face. I need you to remain at my side, to continue this strange partnership we've created, to help me show both our peoples that blood, whether shared in war or in mercy, can bind us toward peace rather than destruction. I don't have much choice. No, she admitted, but perhaps in time you will choose to stay regardless. Edward thought about his unit, his dead comrades, the war still raging across star systems. Then he thought about this strange vampire princess who held him captive but treated him with respect, who had been changed by his blood but more deeply by his choice. All right, he said finally. But I have conditions. Jenny's smile widened. Name them, human. You've already changed my biology and my heart. What's a few negotiations? And in that moment, as a human soldier and an Ashkori princess began to plan how to reshape the future of two species, the war began, slowly, uncertainly, to transform into something else entirely.